Yud Hait Amud Aleph, 17 lines down. Ba'i Rava. Rava has a question. Hati nezek srorot migufo mishalim or me'aliyah mishalim. So far, when we mentioned Hatsi nezek, half damages, we mentioned it once in passing. I did not go into it. Shem Tov reached out to me privately and asked me what it's referring to. When we say half damages, seemingly you might think it's referring to half of what it damaged. It's not true. It can be referring to you pay half the damage of what your ox it cost, the damaging ox. If the damaging ox is worth $1,000, you're paying $500 no matter what. Whether the damage was $10,000, if it gored a Lamborghini, you're still paying $500. Or do you pay 50% of what you would do for regular damage? If you damage $10,000, you pay $5,000. That's the last question. Okay. So wait, no. So that's general. General chatzi nezek by a tam is half damages of the animal, of the worth of the animal that damaged, and full damages is full. Now the question is by sorot, the pebble that flies out, is it considered like chatzi nezek of tam, and therefore it's half the animal, or is it half damages of the full damages like regel, and you're paying half of the damage that was done? So the Gemara says, do we find do we pay chatzin nezek of the animal itself, the bull itself, because that's what we do by half damages in general, or do we say no? You pay from the full damages of half of the full damage that was done, damage bills that was done, because it was doing something regular, and the halacha teaches you that you pay half, but otherwise it was a regular damage, and therefore you should pay half price. Tashma. The Gemara tries to bring a proof from a brayta I mentioned earlier. Hidus ina mu'ad v'yeshumnim harazem mu'ad. And a chicken that's hopping is considered mu'ad. Some people say it's not hopping, not mu'ad. So the Gemara has hidus ta'av. Does that mean hopping, regular hopping? Oh, of course the chicken hops. The Gemara says no. Hidus v'hitiz b'hakim. Right? No, maybe it's referring to a case where it's hopping and it's causing pebbles to fly and break stuff, and therefore the machloket is mandamar in a muad kasavan megov mishalim. The one holds it's not muad holds that it's only you're paying half of the price of the animal, and mandamar muad kasavan mishalim. The other one holds that it is muad. That means he's paying half price, but for half of the cost of the damage, not the animal. Okay, Tashma, another proof. So the words I know, I know. No connection to that. It's the machloket of over there is the famous machloket of sumchus and rabanan. We're going to have this answer like 12 times today. The machloket of sumchus rabanan is whether or not you pay full or half damages by sorot. And over here we're saying that's the machloket, nothing to do with what type of damages you're paying by sorot. Okay, Tashma, another proof. If a dog took a cookie off a cookie that was baking on a bed of coals, and it was walking, it took the cookie off the bed of coals and it walked by a haystack and it dropped it on the haystack, right? Problem is, on the back of that coal, on the back of the cookie was a coal that stuck to it. Now it lit the whole thing on fire. She ate the cookie and the haystack went on fire. The cookie you pay full damages, the chin, and the haystack you pay half damages. My time out, why? You only have lab mishum dahabil tzorot. It's considered tzorot. And over there we say that you pay half damages of the dog, not the damage that was done. Right? Half damages of the thing that damaged. Trying to bring a proof. The Gemara says, that's not a proof. That's not a regular case of tzorot. According to Lazar, that we say you find full damages. You ever pay full damages from the dog, from the animal itself? No. It's referring to a case where the dog did something unusual. So therefore, it was a case of keren, right? The case would be if it ate a cookie and it took the coal in its mouth and was playing with the coal. Right? That's not something normal. The Rebbe says, "La holds like Rabbi Tarfon, like Rabbi Tarfon. If it's a keren, which is like a tam, half damage. However, it happened in the damagee's property, you still pay full damages, even though it's a tam." The Gemara says, "Velohi, not a good proof. My time on why do you want to explain it that it's according to the bitarfon and mishum nezek shalem is because he holds we pay full damages from the dog, right? Not from the damaged property. That's not a good proof. Why? Because there holds like Sumchus who holds Srarot always pays full damages. Right? Sumchus holds that many times. Right, and the Wizard also holds in the Mishnah in a month from now you're going to have a Mishnah that talks about this type of scenario. In this type of scenario, if the animal with the cookie, etc. So when you're paying half damages, does it refer to according to Bazar he holds that you pay chetzi nezek comes from the dog, right? So the dog worth $100, you're paying $50, and then the other half you still have to pay chetzi nezek of the damaged property, according to Bazar. And according to the Braita, from this Braita, however, says that it's applying to the tam part, not to the damagee part, which means, according to this way of explaining, it's referring to that you're only paying the tam chatzi nezek from the dog, so $100 to $50 of the dog, and if you did it 3 times, you're paying $100 dog, never paying full damages for the damaged property. You're referring to Rabbi Yehuda in the situation where a tam that becomes a mu'ad, right? For example, a case of tzorot, it's something abnormal and it happened 3 times, and now we assume, okay, this animal, when it walks, it shoots out pebbles all the time, it's considered mu'ad. But mu'ad mitchilato, but in the case where something that's mu'ad from the beginning, right? Regular tzorot, like sumchus, regular tzorot always chayav. Misha Matle, would you agree that the first half payment is only for a tam? No, absolutely not. You have to pay full damages regardless. In the same case of regular tzorot, according to Sumchus, right? So according to Sumchus, where you say tzorot, pebble flying out, full damages across the board. He doesn't care tam mu'ad, nothing. The only time you can make a difference, according to the Isaac, is in a case where it was an abnormal situation. It was the dog was playing with a coal and the coal lit the thing on fire. That's tzorot, that's mishuna. That's chatzi nezek from mishuna. Gemara says Ella. When the Rebbe says that you're paying full damages for the haystack is where the dog was mu'ad for playing with coals. This dog is messed up, and therefore it's mu'ad for doing this. The is going on the following: more savar yesh ha'adal tzorot, or more savar en ha'ada al tzorot. And so machloket whether or not there is such a thing as tzorot that can become mu'ad. Do you make it mu'ad just because it did this odd thing 3 times or not? So according to Lazar, yes, the dog did it 3 times, you have full damages. Other opinion holds no. You could do if it's doing something strange and you have tzorot on it, chatzi nezek, no matter how many times it does it. Mara says 1 second. That's the case. That's the machloket it's talking about. That it's machloket whether or not there is mu'ad tzorot, if you want to call it, and not mu'ad tzorot. Then later on, Rava asks the question: is there such a thing? Same exact thing. Yes. Is there such a thing as mu'ad tzorot or not? So if we just said that there's a machloket on it, we should have just said if we just said the machloket in that Braita is referring to whether or not there is ha'ada or not, then when Rava asked, we should have said yes, there's a machloket in the Braita, but we didn't. So Rava would say no. The reason why Rava still had a question, even though there's that Braita, he might ask a different. He might say it's different. Why? When I ask these questions, according to Chachamim, who argue against Sumchus and hold that there's Tzorot is Chatzi Nezek, and therefore he's asking if it's Chatzi Nezek and does it 3 times, does it become Mu'ad? And therefore you pay full damages. But over here we establish it. This is according to Sumchus. It's referring to full damages. And why would Chachamim hold Chatzi Nezek? Dishani velo yayid. It's referring to the case where it did something odd with the coal, for example, and it did not become mu'ad yet. Ubeplukta the Rabbi Tarfon Rabbanan Kamifli. It's machloket between Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbanan. Right? We mentioned earlier that is machloket about in a case of abnormal tzorot, whether or not there's full damage or half damage. That's why Rava still had a question. That case was a different case, the abnormal case completely already, whether or not there's full or half damages by an odd case. But now, what if a regular case, according to Chachamim, who hold is there such a thing as becoming mu'ad for a regular case of tzorot? Okay. So Gemara says, I would say that Rabbi Tarfon would hold nezek shalim by a keren tam but would he hold that you pay from the body of the animal? Right? Would you be paying for the animal itself? Or from the damagee? The damaged bills. Gemara says, where do we learn? Right? So later on, that where do we learn that the keren tam, the animal that is a tam, it gored for the first time? Where do we know that your chayav full damages if it happened in the damagee's property, even though it's a tam? From a kava chomer. So therefore, dayo laba min adin nirkenidon. We apply the special halacha of dayo. Dayo means that whenever you have a kava chomer, you take the halacha that you learned it from and you applied it to the second case as well. So we learned that just like in that case of the pasuk, it was chayav full damages in the damagee, even though it's chatzi nezek, even though it should be chatzi nezek. So too over here, you would be chayav full damages of the animal, even though it's a tam. Gemara says that sounds great. However, Rabbi Tarfon litle dayo. We know Rabbi Tarfon does not hold the dayo where you copy and paste the halachot in a case of a kal v'chomer. Gemara says ki litle dayo mekecha de mifri kal v'chomer. Hecha de lo mifri kal v'chomer itla dayo. You say no, not so. Not you. The reason why you thought there's no Rabbi Tarfon does not hold dayo is he only holds that there's no dayo, which means you can't copy and paste the halacha in a case of kal v'chomer. That only applies if there is a question in the kal v'chomer. It's not a beautiful, clear-cut kal v'chomer. Over here, in this case that we have, it is a good kal v'chomer, and therefore he would use dayo. Okay. Kufa. Earlier we said, Bay Rava yesh hadal esrot in hadal esrot. It's machloket. Is there such a thing as becoming mu'ad for esrot or not? Lekeren, do we consider lekeren, like goring, that it becomes mu'ad? Or dilma padot regel hu? Or do we consider it like regel, that it always will be chatzi nezek no matter how many times it happens? Gemara says, Tashma, he does in a muad v'yeshuvnim harem muad, as before. He does sagadatach, does it mean actual hopping? Of course it's muad. Gemara says, no, Allah, he does v'heti, he's referring to hopping and causing pebbles. My love, maybe he's referring to a case where he did 3 times, it became muad. Now the machloket over there is more savar isha adana, more savar inhada. Maybe over there, that's exactly the machloket, that if it becomes mu'ad or not. The Gemara says no. Same answer as before. Lo bechad zuna beputa zimchus rabbanan. It's machloket between zimchus rabbanan, whether or not tzarot you pay full damages or not. Next, tashma behema shehtila galim la'isa. If an animal had its droppings dropped on a dough, right? It ruined the dough by relieving itself. You pay full damages, even though it's my life could go in the right? Maybe it's referring to 3 times done, and therefore most of our maybe it's referring to that you're not sure whether or not it's muad, and therefore if you did it 3 times, so Gemara says the same answer. Lo, the b'chadzim is considered the first time. It's referring to the first time, and what's the machlokah based off of? Whether or not you're paying full or half is because it puts Simchus Rabbanan and Rabbanan have the machloket whether or not you pay full or half when you damage. The Gemara says it's weird. It's not a normal case of tzorot. It's the animals are leaving itself on the dough. The Gemara says le alma. It's not an uncommon case. That is a common case because it was a very narrow location. The animal couldn't have done it elsewhere, so it did it on the dough. Therefore, the Gemara said, why do you have to have 2 machloket at the same point? The Gemara says no. The limit we have to bring this right how to teach you the halacha of this case where it relieved itself. You might think that it's not considered sordot by a case of feces. Why? Because if the animal is relieving itself from inside of itself, you might think it's considered part of the animal. All right, they did an airstrike while flying over the dough. It came from the animal itself. It wasn't the pebble. So maybe you might think it's considered the actual animal, kamash malan. No, teaching you that it's still considered sordot. Tashma. Tani Rami Barach is Heskel. Tanagosho Shidra Shola Havir Zuhir, a rooster stuck his head inside a glass cup. Vitakabo Ushvaro, and it shrieked into it and it broke it. You pay full damages. Amari says, Hamri Rav says, Sus Shenafsanaf Hamor Shina Arvish Bertakim. If a horse or a donkey screamed into a vessel and it broke because of the sound, Mishalem Hatzinazek, you pay half damages. My love could go on Davat Latazini, right? It's referring to where these animals did it 3 times, and therefore, more savar, the case where he said Nezek Shalem is because he did it 3 times. In the case Hatzi Nezek, so we did it only 1 time. Sorry, you both did it 3 times. In the machloket, whether or not it becomes muad. Gemara says same answer. Lo b'chatz not a single time. He's referring to the machloket of simchus rabanan, whether or not Sordot pays full damages or not. Gemara says it's weird for an animal to scream into a cup. Gemara says no. The eat the bed bizrani. There's bizit. There's seeds inside. That's why it's sticking its head inside it. And while it's sticking its head inside, it shrieked and it broke the cup. Rav asks, yes, shinu l'tzrot l'leviak nezek, or en shinu l'tzrot l'leviak nezek. Right. So according to the opinion that you hold, that you're paying half damages. Right. Animal stepped on something and it broke it because it flew out. If it's a shinui, according to Chachamim, who hold that it's chatzi nezek. If it's a weird case, uncommon case, do you do chetzi? Meaning, do you do half of a half and you pay a quarter in a case of weird? So the Gemara says, Tishulam Rava. Let's bring an answer based on Rava. Right? Sounds like there's no difference. If he's asking this machloket, if he's asking if you become mu'adana, sounds like it doesn't make a difference. The Gemara says, no, Dima Rava im titzilomar ka'amar. Maybe you might say the Rava's asking, im titzilomar en shinoi, according to the opinion who holds that there's no difference if it's abnormal or not, meaning it could still be abnormal and it could still be you could still pay a quarter or not. He's asking, hada'a and hada'a. Is there such a thing as becoming mu'ad according to that opinion? And he says, teku, we don't know. There's more of it, don't worry. It's a question. Right, we had this case before, same exact term, yesterday's daf. If my force is force, is it considered like my force or not? Right, so we said, if I stepped on something, if the animal stepped on something, it flew out, broke something, and that thing that broke something else as well. The force of your force, is that considered your force? So I know, let's say according to Sumchus, you pay full, according to Chachamim, for example, if your animal stepped on a pebble, it hit a bucket, broke the bucket. I'm paying $10 for the $20 bucket. What if that bucket, when it shattered, hit something else? The cup. Does that cup, do I pay or not? So do we say that's still considered sordot like halacha Moshe Mitzinai? Maybe you should pay half, or maybe not at all. The Gemara says teku. Right, if the animal was kicking or pebbles were shooting out, you pay chatzi nezek. What's this case? If it was kicking and damaging while kicking, or if she damaged through the tzorot. What case is the case of tzorot in this case? Is it part of the damage or secondary? But Rabbanan here, and therefore it's according to Chachamim will hold that it's if a case of regular tzorot where it flew out from the kick, the pebble flew out from the kick, and therefore it's chatzi nezek. Or maybe it was kicking and it damaged through the kicking or through the tzorot, and because it's common, right? It's common for the animal to kick rocks while walking. You should pay full damages. Umani, it's according to Simchus, who holds that you pay the shlim through tzorot. So the Gemara says, I'll answer you as follows. Tashma Seifa, we could prove from the second half of that brayta that what? Right? That's the same as case. If the animal stepped on something, it broke, and a piece of that broken thing flew out and broke something else. Already shown pay the first one full damages because it stepped on it. That's regal. Well, Achron Chatzin Nezek, and on the second thing you pay Chatzin Nezek because it's Sordot. V'Simchos mi'it le Chatzin Nezek. According to Simchos, can you hold the Chatzin Nezek in the case of regular Sordot? Right, so it can't be Simchos. The Gemara says no. Maybe you might think that the first utensil is referring to the second one, meaning the first utensil hit by the shards of the. Right, we had bucket and cup. The cup that got hit by the first bucket that got destroyed. Maybe that's what it's referring to. Maybe when it says second, it's referring to a third cup that got damaged. Very dohak, it sounds like. Right? And maybe the difference, according to Simchus, between the bucket to the cup versus the bucket to the cup to the second cup, any third utensil, and that's why you hold Chatzin Nezek. According to Rav Ashi, who asked the question earlier, if your force is force, right? The cup, the bucket to the cup, next cup, is that considered like your force or not? If so, this Mishnah is according to Sumchus, where that's exactly the case. We're trying to establish that's the case, and you pay Chatzin Nezek, that you should have the answer. Gemara says no. This bright Mishnah is according to Chachamim, right? Who hold Chatzin Nezek. The questions as follows: If it was kicking and it damaged through kicking, or if it did regular tzorot, stepped on a pebble and it hit something. The question is, do you pay a quarter damage if it was uncommon tzorot, right? If it's set on something unnatural for it to happen, do you pay a quarter damage because it was unnatural? Or do we say, if the animal was kicking and damaged while kicking, or through shorot while kicking, you pay Chatzin Nezek ve'en shinoi, and there's no difference whether or not it's abnormal. Yani, you don't pay a quarter; you always pay half, no matter not whether or not it's uncommon or abnormal. Teku machloket. We don't know the answer.